Is that what is it that we have not done right? Because we've been fighting this corruption all along. Civil society, governments are coming policies, laws, regulations, guidelines, but it has become elusive. So we need to know what we have missed in all this war. That poor governance and corruption have continued in this country is not for lack of trying. Everybody has been trying. Both the civil society and government have made bold attempts to deal with it, but it persists. Why does it persist on this thing? It is notable that by order of magnitude, Kenya has a proportionately bigger number of civil society institutions in the region. This might of numbers has conveyed to present a very strong voice of advocating for accountability from the government. At independence, the founding fathers committed to eradicate ignorance, poverty, and disease. 60 years after independence, we have not come close to achieving or the achievement of those objectives. The situation distills to embarrassing realities of one army of unemployed citizens living in uninhabitable conditions, multitudes of university graduates without decent employment, collapsing markets for agricultural commodities with its consequences on both small-scale or large-scale agricultural producers, deteriorating investments and business climate, stalled projects and substandard infrastructure, inability to adequately deliver basic services like education, water, and health, and finally, the unprecedented loss of value of the national currency. The list is endless. We have to fix this, and we have to do it together. Notably, the country has a blueprint for national development, the Kenya Vision 2030, whose due date is 7 years or so from today. Are we going to meet it, the target? Are we really sure? What percentage or proportion of the failure to achieve Kenya Vision 2030 is attributed to corruption? We need a conversation. Further, the current administration has developed the bottom-up economic transformation agenda with an all-inclusive development approach, focusing on accelerating achievements of the goals stated in Vision 2030 and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The overarching goals under bottom-up economic transformation agenda include: one is revamping the economic growth, fostering job creation, lowering the cost of living, enhancing foreign exchange inflows, and promoting inclusive growth. Are we really going to achieve this with the rampant corruption across the country? That is the question we need to be asking ourselves. His Excellency the President is also convinced that the wealth of the country is not so much in its resources, but lies with the people. That is why, besides the economic transformation, he has also committed to put dignity into people's lives by guaranteeing access to decent housing, water, credit, jobs, justice, and security. For this to happen, we need to fight corruption, because if we don't, these grand ideas may not be achieved as is expected. This fight has to be fought by all of us, and we're asking for support and assistance from the civil society. We know you can reach out to many partners across the world, either to access expertise and technical know-how, or even to access resources that will enable the government and the people of Kenya, you included, to succeed this time round. And we have to succeed. There is no option. we have zero option in this thing, because we want this country to develop, and we want the leadership of this generation to be the leadership that eliminated corruption and changed the tide and trajectory of development in this country. So the administrative steps taken to give the police and judiciary the autonomy were in pursuit of this endeavor. There are many issues, and civil society can attest to this. So many structural issues were identified. So many governance complications had been identified and listed. And that is why His Excellency the President really decided and said, yes, what is possible to be done under his hand, it will be done when he assumes office. And the first thing he did was to resource judiciary, not only with human resource in terms of judges by swearing in those who had stayed for several months, but also quickly enhancing their budget portfolio and assuring them that they are going to be independent and they will not be interfered with. Secondly, move very fast and make the police autonomous in their budget and also in the management and administration of that portfolio. He also proclaimed publicly and in writing still that everybody will be on their own when it comes to governance issues. So these are the things that have been done that we were calling you today so that we all agree and we persuade you to support us to realize the objectives and the focus that you've been having in this country for many years in this area of governance challenges. So all what we have said could easily turn into a pipe dream if the country does not tackle the two predatory vices of poor governance and corruption mentioned earlier. It is instructive to note that public servants will always be in charge of enormous public resources. In fact, the entire national budget is expended under the signatures of public officials. They need to be encouraged to develop sufficient resilience, restraint, and discipline to keep their fingers off public coffers, and His Excellency the President has committed to do everything in his power to deliver this goal. It is for all of us, and especially your ability and your participation, to help us develop sufficient resilience around our public servants, to develop a lot of restraint and discipline. So we are inviting you to come to the table so that we can share and see how we can work on this. Even as the government intensifies the fight for prevention and eradication of corruption, there is a firm realization that this war cannot be left to the state alone. All actors, including the corporate sector, civil society organizations, and private citizens have a role. It is for this reason that this meeting is convened as a starting point for a partnership between the government and the civil society. I'm sure you, when you receive our invitation, many of you, I'm told, had series of meetings trying to dissect and find out what is this that this government want. To the extent now that as we sit here, about 9 or 10 organizations decline to come because they are not too sure. Let me tell you, we are dead serious about this thing. We want partnership. We are dead serious. And we are thoroughly honest. And we don't have anything under the table. So you better count us to be partners in this war that you've been fighting alone against all the machinery of government. You have the machinery of government now. So let us fight together. Whatever you've been lacking for centuries or ages, you have it now. Partnership, goodwill from the highest office, assurance from the highest office. So all what remains is for you to roll down your system, mobilize your army of men and women who are going to sensitize, pronounce, and without fear to the world that there is corruption here, there is corruption on the other side, this other agency is doing the other side. We need that support because the government cannot manage alone. So the wish on the part of government to partner with civil society is in appreciation that good governance occupies a central role for civil society organization. You step in areas where the state machinery falls short to deliver much needed services and to call the government to account. You've been doing before. You've been tear gassed, you've been arrested, all manner of things. I can even see faces here I can see faces who have been prominent in TVs being handcuffed, chased, injured. But here we are saying now this administration is for you to use. So no tear gas, we shall turn the tear gases elsewhere to the culprits that you've been fighting all along. So welcome to this partnership. So cognizant of this role, the government wishes to see a more coordinated and integrated approach with the participation of players from all sectors. We wish to really plead with you so that we have a coordinated approach, an integrated approach for that matter, where the civil society can really help us with the insights on how to fight this thing, can help us also to mobilize themselves around sensitizing the public, giving confidence to the public, deploying tools and mechanisms to the public that will help them report, resist, and even be bold enough to rise against any vice that they are seeing in public institutions or anything that is orchestrated by public servants that is not of any good at all to the public. That is your specialty. So we want this country to shake. We want this country to have information. We have this country to have a voice. We have this country to have channels of transmission of information, real time. We want a conversation, ensure good in it across, to make sure that this thing is confronted in all fronts, from EACC, from DCI, from civil society, from Wananchi themselves, and also from God, so that we can win this time. Let me repeat, we are dead serious. His Excellency the President is dead serious about this thing. It has to stop. So this desire is bolstered by the benefit of political goodwill from the highest office in the land. On this account, the Executive Office of the President has moved with optimism and kick-started a service-wide sensitization campaign against the vice of corruption. We have had consultative meetings with governance institutions, including the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Auditor General, the Controller of Budget, the Office of Director of Public Prosecution, the Director of Criminal Investigations, the Financial Reporting Center, and the Asset Recovery Agency. We have had a decision, we have had meetings, we have consulted, and we have agreed to have a multi-agency approach in tackling these files. These agencies have been assured of support by His Excellency the President and I to carry out their mandate without fear or favor, with the assurance that their work will not be interfered with and that the war against corruption will not be compromised. They have an assurance. We have meetings. We have discussions across the sector. We identified critical offices that can play a greater role in fighting corruption. We have also identified departments, professions, and agencies that also are very susceptible and prone to corruption. And also we have also had consultative meetings with Parliament, the 6 audit committees of Parliament. We have had conversation with them. PIC, PAC, all of them, we have had conversation with them, that they need to play their part and the executive is going to play its part. We have had meetings with all accounting officers across main public service and even parastatals. The government itself and parastatals. All of them. All CEOs, all chairmen of the boards of state corporation. We have had meetings with all heads of accounts, finance, administration, supply chain, management, and internal auditors across the country. We have had a conversation. We have had conversation with national government and police officers from DCC, the DO, up to RCs, up to the PS. We have had conversations, face to face, not through circulars. We have had conversations because we have a bit different. And ladies and gentlemen, the President decided this time around to tackle this vice by coming up with a different approach. He says issues of arrest, individuals here and there does not work. Let us start mobilizing people. Let them understand. Let us create a very critical agents around the public servants who can help the war within their institutions and outside. Let us even help them to realize the damage this corruption has caused. That is why we have had meetings, so that as the agencies are proceeding with their normal investigation, arrests, statement writing, each and every officer of government, as we speak, is aware that they are required and they are needed to be part of men and women to fight this thing. Because institutions alone cannot fight this thing. It has become a way of life. So we have to uproot it. We have to change the culture. We have to reorganize the tradition around public service to make this war succeed. And in all these consultations, the message remains the same. All public officers will be held accountable for acts of corruption in their offices, with emphasis on personal accountability. And the President has been very clear. There will be no sacred cows or excuses about orders from above. In fact, he went ahead and said, if you are caught, deal with it. As he's dealing with it, as the person is dealing with it, he'll be dealing with replacement. So there is no call to say, that is so and so, leave him. And that is why I want to encourage you that don't look for a weighing scale of who to report, of who to indict. No. Bring it as is. Let it come as is, because if we don't, we'll be lying to ourselves, because this thing has permeated down to the messenger. So we have to agree and fight. So we are saying neither will there be unexecutive interventions in any way in sympathy with perpetrators of corruption. In other words, the corrupt will have nowhere to hide and will take personal responsibility for their actions. So the consultative meetings formed the first phase of the war against corruption. We are now moving to the next stage that will include public education and empowerment. So, ladies and gentlemen, the importance of involving the citizens is confirmed, as you are aware, by our World Bank report produced in 2015 titled Mind, Society and Behavior. The report states that in some communities, corruption in form of bribery, fraud, extortion, influence, peddling, kickbacks, cronyism, patronage, and embezzlement are expected, tolerated, and progressively become a social norm. It has become a social norm. It further states that where corruption is the norm, social networks perpetuate corruption by punishing public officers who violate the norm. It becomes the other side. The hunter becomes the hunted. So I regret to say that I totally agree with this view. We celebrate ill-gotten wealth and idolize the holders of such wealth, allowing them to access to privileges inaccessible to ordinary folks. This situation is what forms the agency for the partnership the government is seeking with the civil society. The government is aware of your resourcefulness and capacity to influence change, noting your impressive track record of working with ordinary citizens with their diverse cultures and social norms. So, majority of us are coming from the countryside or even in towns where a young man gets a job in the so-called wet area where corruption thrives, where there's a lot of money. Another one gets a job in a sector that they call dry area or dry sugarcane. That's what I hear. You chew, but there's nothing that comes out. And these two young people are coming from the same village. The other one in wet area, which has been brought into the ring of corrupt fellows, display a lot of flamboyance, invest a lot at home, builds a house for the mother, buys land, buys a car, takes the sisters and all the brothers to good schools, goes to Arambes around. People in the village will never call him by his name. He's young, but he'll be called Mzee. Whenever he goes to a function, wazee wanatoa kofia, wanapiga makofi, wanaachia ile kiti mzuri. Isn't it true? The other one, who is in the very dry area, struggles with his 50, 60, 100,000, takes loans, is struggling. Anaambiwa, wewe, unaona mtoto fulani, alienda Nairobi, unaona, amejengea mama yake nyumba, watoto wako zuri. Wewe ulienda kula pesa Nairobi na wasichana wa huko. So we are glorifying corruption and we are chiding and becoming sarcastic to the people who seems to be working straight and doing what they are able to do within the means that they have. That is how socializing corruption to the extent of making it a culture and tradition comes into play. Go to pubs, public hizi maba na nini na machoma zones. Somebody arrives, he says that sasa hii bar yote nitasimamia. People drink till morning. They don't pay anything. They start singing about him. They even create. They start imagining how powerful, how great he is. Glorifying corruption. Basic, pure. Another function I was saying, nowadays we sit in offices. Many of you are in civil society as well as do business here and there. People factor in money for corruption in their budgets. And I said, if you have a lorry or a pickup, you are carrying things from Nairobi to your home, driver anakuambia, ongezea 1,000 ya barabara. Hiyo ya barabara ni nini? To bribe all the policemen in roadblocks as they are going on, as is going on. Is it so? This is what is happening. Factoring in corruption in our budgets. Going even to hospital, the same thing. Cutting employment, even if somebody has succeeded through interview on his own, he feels obligated to go and look for somebody who did a letter, apatia hata 5,000 ati asante. He or she feels that here haikuja bure, there must be somebody who pushed. So, we are saying that you can ably assist the government to awaken the citizens' awareness of the negative impact of corruption, demonstrating how their dreams for better lives are stolen, and their civic responsibility to turn the tide by resisting, preventing, and reporting corruption. This is the problem, and this is where we are kindly requesting the civil society organizations to really, perhaps you are tired about this thing, and you have suffered a lot, but to really try to awaken the society, the people, to realize that they have a civic duty and responsibility, and to help them to realize that it is the right thing to resist, it is the right thing to prevent, and it's the right thing to report corruption. I think that is where you can help us to push this war, because it's not about the gun, it's not about the courts, it's not about the dismissals. It's about this culture that we need to change. So we are begging of you, go out there, reactivate your offices, recall your people perhaps that have been laid off, write proposals, and look for resources. CEO of NGO bodies here, I hope it will not frustrate you to get all the necessary facilitation so that we can fight this thing. I repeat, the government is dead serious about this thing. And they know you have a huge role that you can play. And I know you know that you have a huge role. So even as the government seeks new partnership, we remain aware that historically fear of repression and retribution have stood in the path of the fight against corruption. We know that. It is true. It's true. As we are trying to also bring you, we are aware also, even when we are standing here, as people are pushing to fight this corruption, we know we are in danger also. Corruption fights back. So as I stand here also, it is not easy, but it is the right thing to do. The corrupted has not any office or any position in life. They fight because they want to continue driving the agenda. Let us all relent or say that, oh, the government is that. So the fear of repression, we are aware, it has been there, and retribution has been there. And has actually stood in the path of fight against corruption, especially amongst yourselves. So the government is now reaffirming its commitment to the civil society organization that there will be no repression of any form whatsoever in your effort to correct the government and demand accountability where incidences of corruption, maladministration, and injustice occurs. Do your thing. Do what you know best to fight corruption. So the only request we put forward is that all players observe the rule of law and respect the rights and security of citizens and their property. Let us fight corruption within the rule of law, and let us ensure the security of people is ensured. But this thing called corruption must be fought. As it is fighting back, let us fight. And we are asking all of us to be part of the team. So we are fully convinced that increased citizen activism can be a powerful deterrent to corruption. Besides, agitation and demand for accountability is a democratic right protected by the Constitution. The citizens and all people of goodwill can confidently, without fear, call out public officials for action, for acts of corruption, report the incidences for appropriate action, embrace a value-based society, and finally conduct their affairs guided by the rule of law. This is your area. We will soon unveil a safe and secure mechanisms to receive information from the members of the public and also from yourselves. But in the meantime, citizens may continue to use the whistleblower system under EACC. We are trying to also to create some platform where even citizens can also be reporting anonymously how the mechanism that can enable even civil society to submit their confidential reports and to ensure that we are all working together seamlessly so that we fight this vice in a way. So really, it is simply put, that is why I call you to come for this conversation. And I hope those who are skeptical, they have realized that the engine is almost leaving the station. We want all of us to fight together. We want all of us to come together. We want all of us to have our minds to meet so that we can save this country and ensure that the funds that are raised through taxes goes to where it deserves, not to people's pockets. So as I come to the conclusion of my remarks, let me, for avoidance of doubt, categorically state that my invitation to you should not be taken as a move to influence or dissuade you from your journey of lobbying and advocating for the rights of the citizens. What we are doing here is to actually encourage you to proceed even more deeper, more vigorous, and with some conscious approach in doing this. We remain conscious and respectful of the constitutional provision for separation of powers, checks and balances, and independence of thought and opinion. We are aware. We are also aware of frustrations that sometimes you go through accessing information, trying to, and yet it is provided for in the Constitution. We know these things. And this is part of corruption. That we have all the necessary laws, either in the Constitution, either in the statutes, but people still resist for selfish reasons, to use those instruments for their selfish gain. So the president appointed or directed my office to lead this process in its capacity as the administrative head of the executive of the president and coordinator and overall supervisor of the public service in order to enable a holistic approach to the fight against corruption. So it was deliberate that the push, the reawakening, the jump-starting of the war against corruption was to be in the office of the president under his direct instructions, so that the story of who went above, below, wherever is not there. It is from there. So, like I stated earlier, my intention today is not to talk to you or lecture you on human rights. You are more competent than I am in this area. So my intention today, in a short while, is to listen to you, get your honest observations and proposals on how to approach, conduct, and sustain the war on corruption. I wish to hear where the government has gone wrong, where changes are needed, be they legal, policy, programmatic, or institutional, and what we have done right and needs to be sustained. I'm informed that many of you are members of the Leadership Integrity Forum under the umbrella of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. I salute you and urge other organizations to join the forum. So really, I hope you have heard that that is what we are requesting. Support, collaboration, partnership, bringing in expertise, working together, focusing on this animal, this dragon that has evaded slaying for a long time. You know, mobilizing the citizens of this country to rise up, to resist, to prevent and report corruption. Sensitizing the whole country through whatever media that you possibly have. Mobilizing resources around this war against corruption. Bringing in technical expertise to do it. Simply put, that is what we are requesting you to help us with. And on our side, we are assuring you that repression, retribution, frustration in this space will not be condoned by His Excellency the President in any way. You have been invited to this table to enable us fight this common enemy called corruption. So, at this point, I think allow me to now open the for candid discussions on how we can join hands and breathe new life to the war against corruption, redeem our country, and secure the future of generations to come. Asante sana. I hope I have not bored you. I had to say candidly as it is, because as I said, the President is dead serious on the war against corruption. Thank you very much.